Hello and welcome back to the Just Follow Joy podcast. My name's Ariana, not Joy, and today we're talking about something that may not, at first glance, seem like it really fits into the theme of this show, but I would argue absolutely fits into the theme of this show and is a crucial part of learning to follow your joy and end up living the life that is right for you and feels amazing to you. And that is dealing with conflict. Because as we mentioned in this episode with our very special guest today, if you're going to do things your way in this lifetime, which is what this podcast is all about and what I am here to encourage you to do and show you how to do, there's always going to be some conflict that comes along with it. It is inherent to this kind of path, even if it doesn't seem like it should upset anyone, is what I've learned. But somewhere along the way, we are going to come across it. And if you don't understand how to work with it, in a way that's going to work for you, you are going to sacrifice a lot of things that are ultimately going to bring you the fulfillment and joy that you are meant to have. And I really don't want that for you. I don't want that for you. I think that's a waste of anyone's potential. And thank you. I'll get off my soapbox right now. But in all seriousness, this is why I was so stoked to talk to today's guest because she's an expert on this. Dr. Jen Fry is a sports geographer, tech founder, TEDx speaker, and sought after educator. She owns JenFryTalks, an organizational change firm that sits at the intersection of conflict and culture, which specializes in transforming organizational dynamics by addressing how conflict and culture shape leadership and overall business outcomes. So she does usually work with business owners and in corporate settings, but everything we talk about here today can apply to anyone dealing with conflict. Jen is also the author of the newly released I Said No, the no-bullshit guide to setting boundaries, speaking up, and being unbothered by other people's feelings, which I have not read yet, but ooh, I probably should, so I will. And in this episode, we talk about so much good stuff from what our conflicts really show us about our relationships and ourselves, how to deal with conflict on public platforms and in front of others, especially if you are giving a presentation or if you're just a business owner posting online, to how to address someone confronting you without being reactive, and even to how this plays into human design, because, of course, we're going to talk about that. Why else are we here? And real quick before we dive in, if you like this episode, don't forget to leave a like if you're watching on YouTube. And if you want content on human design, manifestation, and more every week for free, make sure to subscribe. And if you're joining us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, a 5-star rating and review is always just as helpful. But anyway, with all that said, let's go hear from Jen. All right, so we have the lovely Dr. Jen Fry with us, and I'm so excited to have you. I'm stoked to talk about this because this isn't the kind of thing we've really covered on the podcast before, but I think it's so important.
Oh, thank you for having me here. Conflict is my jam, and I think if I can help people be happier through helping them through hard stuff, I've done my job.
Yeah, absolutely. We need people like you. Damn, because it's not going to be me. It's not going to
You're
be
like,
me.
not me, not me.
Not going to be me. But anyway, so before we start, I just want to say, you have a PhD in something called sports geography, and
Yeah.
I would so kindly like to ask you to explain what that is to me, a mere layperson, because I have no clue what that is, and I wonder if other people know too.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm probably one of the only sport geographers in the world. It's interesting because sport is very geographical and fandom is very geographical. Training, how athletes train is very geographical. Like if we take, for instance, baseball, how Dominicans train versus how Japanese train, it's very geographical. If we look
Mm.
at even the states of sports, of like you think about Florida and football, compared to other states. So it's very geographical. And so for me, I come from college volleyball. I was a coach for about 15 years. And a friend of mine said, you have two masters, you can't get a third, you have to get a PhD. And I was like, okay, what am I going to study? And I really wanted to kind of uplift the voices of Black female athletes. And so I had all these offers, and then one of them was geography from Michigan State. And so for me, it was like, how do I combine these two loves of sport and geography? And it's fascinating because when you look at the PhD, you become an expert on a very like nuanced topic. And if you look at them, like many PhDs, it's like I have a PhD in philosophy and I study 17th century banana slugs. Like you can study whatever you want. And for me, I was like, I want to study sport in a very geographical way. And so I did the racial experiences of professional Black female volleyball players in Europe and like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And so when people like look at stadiums, everything is geographical. And I mean, this is a tandem I'll go on. a lot is that I'm sad for the way college athletics is being spread apart because it really hurts rivals. The biggest thing was like the rival was close to you, and now these conferences are wide open. And so you don't get to have the same, to me, fandom because people aren't traveling across the country like Stanford going to play at Clemson. People aren't really traveling like they would go for Stanford to Oregon State, right? Like so fandom in that sense, I think is going to really shift because of what's happening geographically.
I don't know a lot about college sports, so I had no clue that this was like a shift that they'd made in the structure at all. But that is
Yeah.
fascinating. And also, yeah, I love hearing people's PhDs and like their theses because there's this one podcast, everyone's side note. There's this podcast I'm obsessed with, and it's about history. It's from a channel called History Hit. It's called After Dark. And the people who come on, their PhDs are so specific. And I'm like, I never would have thought to study something
Yeah.
like that, but I'm so glad you did because now I get to learn all about it. There was one woman on who studied morgues in Paris in the 19th century.
No shit, really.
Yeah, and specifically morgue photography. So that's so cool. And I love what you're saying, and it's so true because there is such an intersection between geography and sport, and thus culture in sport is kind of what we're seeing here. And anyway, I love that. That does have such a huge effect.
So I think I have a few things. The first thing is if you're really interesting, there's a really interesting 30 for 30 on the Raiders. And it's great. So I'm from Arizona. And when you're growing up in Arizona, California, like it was all about the Raiders starter jacket. Like the Raiders were very Hispanic and black. Think about all the old rappers were always wearing Raiders hats, right? You had Easy E with the fitted on. Everyone had their Raiders jackets. Like it was very Hispanic, very black. And then when they moved, I think it was like to Oakland, it changed the whole dynamic of it, right? And so you couldn't get it back. And so it's a really interesting, well, it's not from a geographical lens. It actually is very geographical about fandom. And so I think it's just such a fascinating thing. And I wish there were more majors of sport geography because I think, especially when we talk about the Olympics and what's occurring, we can just dive in such nuance that I think is missing.
And also, you might have seen me like kind of go like this for Oakland. I'm from the East Bay. And so,
Oh,
like, our hearts were broken when the Raiders left. You know, like, yeah,
yeah,
we got the 49ers because San Francisco. So, like, we're
yeah,
kind of spoiled with having two. But at the same time,
yeah.
it's like, it was sad, you know, like, sad for the Raiders to leave, but because they're such a big part of our culture. But
Hmm.
anyway, okay, so we have the sports geography, and how
Hmm.
did this lead you to, if it had any connection to what you're doing now, uh, this work with conflict?
So I think it didn't. I think, kind of the way it led me was many times your friends will see stuff in you that you can't see. And so I was a coach for about 15 years. And when I was 20, God, like 22, 23, I somehow got into this week-long conference. And it was called NACWAHurst. And it was for women in athletics. And I don't know how, I was like a very young coach. I was with some senior administration. I don't know how I got in it. And one of the women, Ingrid Wicker McCree, if you talk to her, she'll tell you I either slept through all the sessions or talked through the whole sessions, which could be very true, absolutely true. And so when I moved to North Carolina, she saw that I moved and was like, "Hey, we're having these parties. You these like, 4th of July parties, you should come." And so I got to know her and her family well. And in like 2000 and I don't know, 16 or so, she was taking a certificate at UNCG in peace and conflict studies. And she was like, you'd be really good at this. And I'm at that point, I'm like 35, 36. I'm like, me? Peace and conflict. None of that applies to me. And so, but I tend to listen to my friends. And so I was like, okay, so I start taking it. And it was fascinating, but it was from more of a theoretical lens. And a semester before I'm supposed to graduate, I'm talking to another student and she's telling me about some classes she's in. And I was like, okay, I like those classes better. I want to transfer majors. So in the span of 24 hours, I completely changed my major with a semester left to graduate. And of course, the director looks at me like I'm crazy. I make really big decisions really fast, and I'm so glad I made that decision. So I end up getting an applied arts and science degree, and this is in 2017 or 18. I then go into about 2019. I'm full-time speaking. I get my PhD, and and I'm doing a lot of talks at the intersection of race and sport, a lot. And then in the end, like the end of 2022, I'm looking at the landscape of what's going on, and states are outlining DEI, and I start to pay attention to my sessions, and I realize that you can't have inclusion without conflict. Like it's right when you're trying to change stuff, it's it's going to be, there's going to be conflict, there's going to be confrontation. Like it's confrontational. And so I kind of had this idea of, instead of helping people understand race, if I can help them understand conflict, I can help prepare people to help to fight for inclusion. And so I started like looking at my sessions and making them longer, shorter, really paying attention to what people were looking at. And that's when I realized that conflict was something that people wanted to dive into, and folks weren't really prepared for it. They weren't teaching it. I don't know if anyone has any session, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that talked actively about conflict skills. Not saying, oh, we have conflict in our offices, but actually the skills of how do we understand ourselves personally to how we then navigate it professionally. And so that's when I was like, I think I'm going to make this switch. And so, what I would say maybe about college or college coaching and stuff helping me, it's that it gave me a foundation of because college coaching is different than any industry in the world. I will die on that hill because most industries, when 5 o'clock comes, the boss is not responsible for their employees. In college coaching, if something happens to our athletes at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, we should be the first person to call, not even their parents. We're the first people. So there's a level of responsibility that's very different than other industries. Also, there's a level of familiarity that you're going to have that's very different from other industries. Um, Within college, I think within college sports, it's the only industry where you can literally see someone grow up from, you're working with them when they're 15 to now you're coaching them when they're in college, you're refereeing them, you're now working with them, you're seeing them have kids, families, like you see the all the iterations of a human in college athletics. And so for me, I think it kind of prepared me because when you're seeing all these iterations, there's going to be a lot of grappling and headbutting. When you have a kid who's 19, 20, who's away from home for the first time, there's going to be a lot of headbutting of them figuring out life. And so in some ways, it maybe prepared me in versus different industries.
That's so fascinating. That's a really cool look at that. And also, I was just laughing to myself when you were talking about how this conflict stuff wasn't related to anything you do. You're like, that's not me. When I was telling Jen before we came on that she actually has this part in her chart, she has the gate of conflict, which sounds bad, but it's not. It's essentially this thing that your aura has where it kind of like kicks up a sense of conflict in other people, or if there's going to be some
Mhm.
conflict, it does, because that way it can sense like, if we can handle this conflict that's happening right now, then this relationship that we can have can be deep and meaningful and real. If it can't last that, then like you aren't the kind of person for me to make an intimate relationship with, or like what we have, this bond here, like that's not really a real bond, right? Because you have the ability and the warmth to like make a bond with someone, and then this gate six kind of like tests the waters, and it's like, what's gonna last here? But those things too, those.
No, no, I need to pause on that because that shit is weird. Because literally a phrase that I tell people is that conflict shows you the depth of your relationships.
I thought you were about to call me out and be like, no, that's
No,
just not it. I was
no,
like, oh,
it's 100% true. Like conflict shows you the depth of your relationship. And many people don't understand it because when conflict happens, they try and shy away and they're like, I don't, how might this affect my relationship if we have this fight? And I'm like, how might it affect your relationship if you don't have it? Right? Like the consequences of not having it, I feel are far wider and deeper than if you actually have it and navigate it and figure out how to get over the hump.
absolutely. I completely agree. There are many times I wish I would just had kind of like stayed my ground, held my ground, not out of an ego place, but I'm like, I would have at least understood where we stood on things. I would have understood how you felt about things, like, with the other person. And I definitely feel like we could have gone a lot deeper. But at the end of the day, like you are a really good facilitator for that in your own life and for other people as well, because you also bring in an energy that's really good at resolving that and like finding a way to deal with that with diplomacy. Basically, like the gift of that is diplomacy.
Mhm.
And it's so interesting because I know someone and he knows someone who has this is called channel 59.6. He has that channel in his chart as well. So he's like you. And they were like basically butting heads with this guy. Like both tried to pull into a parking spot, and the other guy in the car immediately just lost his shit. He was like, "That's my spot. Get out of the way." And his friend just rolls down the window and goes, "Hey man, doesn't have to be like this." And the guy was like, "You're right. I'm sorry. I'm having a really bad day. Like, you're right. My bad." And he's like, "It's all good." And the other guys in the seat, like, that would not work for me. Like it is a gift. And although it is something that we can learn how to do, right? And face, but you do have a natural talent for it. So it was so funny to me when I first pulled up your chart when we booked this and I saw
Mhm.
that. I was like, so fitting.
Well, it's interesting because as a former coach, so there's like these volleyball parent groups, and I'm not a parent, but I go in there just to give like knowledge and information. And literally within the last 3 days, there were these situations where these moms are like just going at me. And like, because what will happen is that people will put like general questions in in the comments and be like, "Hey, I just have this question." I'm like, that's not a general question. You just don't want to say it's for you, but like it is. And here, and I'll give them the information. And she's like, "You're being really hostile." And I'm like, "I'm just being direct. Like, I'm giving you the information you're asking for. You just don't like the answer." And she just keeps going at me. And I'm like, "Okay, girl, fast." And so the day before, I had written this whole thing about skill development. And so literally this woman who was calling me hostile and going at me writes in there, she's like, "Hey, we had a conversation before, and it seems like you're really knowledgeable about volleyball. I have a really long question. Could I ask you?" And I'm like, "D- do you not think it was me?" So she DMs me like 20 paragraphs. And so I'm like, "Hey girl, did you know?" And I like screenshot all the things she said to me. I was like, "Did you not know this is me? Like, I just need like, girl, are we on the same?" And she was like, she literally was like, "I'm sorry." She was like, "I took everything you were saying defensively because you were right." She was like, "I completely apologize." And I said, "I respect that." I said, "You need to write that on the main platform where you were going at my ass." I said, "Go." And she wrote a beautiful apology. And I was like, "I'll help you regardless." But like, and so she just was like, "I wouldn't have got this information had I not talked to you." She was like, "You're one of the best things about volleyball. Please keep doing it." And for me, a part of it is also like when you get real apologies, it helps move it forward. And I don't think people realize that. Like when you like she had a solid apology. The same thing happened. Woman just apologized to me and because she had said some stuff and I was like, "I'll wait for your apology." And she was like, just kept going. And then literally she was like, "I just really want to apologize because," and she said kind of the same thing. And so for me, it's helped me see and understand real apologies and then move through it faster. I don't think people understand so much of the conflict that continues in their life is because of a real apology hasn't been given. And so people are stuck in that spot. And so I'm a mediator here in Baltimore. And what they say is that whenever people keep repeating the same thing, it's because they don't feel like they've been heard. And so that's what people don't understand. They'll say, like, "Well, why does Jen keep going at this thing?" It's like, well, because she hasn't felt like she got an apology or she hasn't been heard. And so for me, with those two women, it's easy for me to be like, "Okay, cool," and keep it moving because they were real apologies that not just like, "Well, I'm sorry you felt that way," but like, "I am sorry for the how I acted." And it was very in depth. And so I can move through it. And so many people don't get that. And they get mad at the person who gets stuck in that moment versus trying to say, what is about this moment that makes this person not be able to move on? And so sometimes when things are happening, I'll literally ask the person, "What is it you need right now to move on from this? Like, what is it you need?" And that can also give you clarity because sometimes the person might not even know what they need. They just don't know how to get out of it. Because, we've been angry or we are just still so angry and we don't know how to get our mind out of that anger. And so sometimes it's like, there's no, you've done it all. I just don't know what I need to move on. And so that's a me thing, not a you thing.
I mean, I can confirm that most of the time, for me, all I need is just the "I am sorry" and "I hear you."
Yeah.
I mean, that's generally it for me. And if even that doesn't do it, then I'm like, that is so on me.
Yeah.
Like at this point in my life, obviously, I haven't always been like that. I've been known to be a
Yeah.
very volatile character, but I'm
Yeah.
getting better. You learn, you live and you learn. And actually, I had this question planned for later, but I've always kind of wondered, especially when people kind of challenge you when you're talking about something. This is a very personal question from my end because I don't know that I always deal super well with people coming at me asking me quote unquote questions when it's kind of, I'm sure you've experienced this. It's like, it feels like there's some hostility there and they're about to explode at you because they're like waiting for
Hmm.
you to say something they don't like so they can argue with you. And then you're kind of
Hmm.
like, why are you here? Because you paid to be here and ask me
Hmm.
questions. So I feel like other people you work with have probably had this issue as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even if you can only tell me from your perspective, how do you usually deal with that, or what do you advise people to do?
I think the first thing is because I talk about two topics that are are high in conflict. I try and always think ahead. Like whenever I go and present and talk, I kind of pay attention to the room and what's going on because I know that like there's one time I presented and I can already tell there was this one woman where I was like, something's going to occur with her. I don't know what's going to occur, but something's going to occur. And in my presentations, people will share out, and while I have a long slide deck, I don't go by it because I want people to share. Like the whole purpose is for people to get verbal exercise. And they can't get verbal exercise. And I'm like, okay, go quick, go quick. Like, no, if it means I don't get to half my slides, it means I don't get to half my slides. And so this one woman, I can already tell, and she was standing up and the things that she was saying, I was like, I'm listening to her. And one of the things that she said was kind of this idea of, um, when she says something, people still like want to push back and say stuff. And I said, okay, I said, you seem like the type of person that if you went somewhere and didn't get the answer you liked, you would keep pushing. And she was like, absolutely, I would. I said, so why is it you get to do it and other people don't? Like people deserve the ability to push back on something. And we've become this idea of if you're pushing back or disrespectful, whatever, like people get to push back on things. And she was like, "Oh yeah, right." And so then she kind of got done talking. And for me, I don't ever pick people. I just will sit in silence. Like that doesn't bother me. We'll sit in dead. And so, but I also know people can't sit in silence for too long. We have too many things going on, right? Music, videos, for us to just sit in dead silence, not looking at a phone. And so people start to get antsy. And then she literally called someone's name. I don't remember his name. She was like, "John, stand up, speak." And I said, "John, sit down. I got this." And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. There was no more. And John said, "Okay." And there was not me having to say anything to her or him. Nope, I got this. And the rest of it was fine. And so the first thing is that I try and like kind of pay attention to what might occur. I think the second thing is that once somebody starts to, I can tell, go that tangent, I'll literally ask them, "What is your question?" And they'll keep talking. "Sir, I'm gonna have to pause you. What is your question?" Like because I think sometimes people forget, like you get to control the room. You don't have to listen to everything. And so once I could start, because there's a difference between someone talking and they just might need a little prompt to get it out versus someone that, like you said, they're going to challenge you. And so, what is your question? Like, you're not going to get to go on a tangent with me. What is your question? And I would just say it. And then if they're not, and if they don't have one, I'll say, "Okay, sir, if there's something you want to talk to me afterwards, but right now we're taking questions." And you have to learn to control the room. And so when and really being, like I said, paying attention to, okay, this person will get up after a while, I can tell he's not asking a question. I need to cut him off. And so
Mm.
being able to do that strongly, and if they get mad, they get mad. Like, what are you gonna get mad at? You weren't asking a question, you wanted to go on a tangent. We're not having that right now. If you want to talk, you can talk to me afterwards. And many of them do not stay to talk. Right? That is not what they're doing. And so for me, it was like, what is your question? I'm happy to answer your question. Happy to. If you have a question, we gotta take a question from someone else.
I love that specifically because my main issue is I want to make sure I'm answering their question. Like, I don't want to shut someone down because that's the thing. You're right. People have the right to push back and ask. And
Mhm.
to be honest, some people don't mean to come across hostile, but they don't really know another way of phrasing things, or they don't realize that it's coming off in a way that I'm taking to be like kind of aggressive. And so it's not personal and they don't even mean to do it, or they just like maybe they do, but they don't have another way of phrasing it because of their own stuff. But my whole
Can
thing
I
is
give you can I give you an idea to help with that?
sure, but I just want to say I love what
Okay.
you were saying because with this, it's like I can just ask, well, what is your question? Because then I can actually answer it and
Yep.
then you don't go on that tangent, right? And then it's just like this runaway train. But yeah, please.
So one thing that helps whenever you're talking about that people might not know, then give them behavior so that they know. So it might be like, "Hey, I just want to let you know right now it just feels a little condescending." Right? Right now your tone is this, like, right, like give them the behavior so that then they know. because
Mm.
they might not know the behaviors that they have when they're asking the question. So get like this is how it's coming off to me. I'm going to assume that you don't mean that, but this is how it's coming off to me. And so
Mm.
give them that behaviors to help out that situation. Um, because and it also it's a gut check of, is this actually aggressive or am I just taking the directness a little? It's like, oh, it's getting me a little bit, because I've had to check myself when, people will stand up and ask stuff. Okay, they're being direct. And right now, with 200 people around, it can feel a little intimidating. And I have to check that with me versus putting it on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And this isn't where I was about to go, but I'd love to kind of hear your perspective on how to deal with intent versus impact of like when someone is saying something, because something I hear a lot in conflict, something I hear repeated over and over again, which is the
Hmm.
issue, which is like kind of a stonewalling effect is, well, I didn't mean it like that. Stop taking it like that. Well, I didn't mean that. So, get over it because that wasn't the intent. Do you have any advice on how to deal with that kind of thing? Like maybe if someone's saying that to you, or maybe you said something that hurt someone's feelings and it wasn't your intent, how to deal with that from both sides?
Yeah, I growled because what is the old saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whenever people sit in intentions, they don't care about the other person. Like if I'm just sitting on my intention, and you're telling me this is the impact, and I don't care. I'm just sitting on my like I don't care about you. Then I can't care if I'm sitting there. You're telling me this hurt you, but I think also to ask the question is, well, what was your intent? If you're saying how I took it was not how you intended, what was your intent? Because sometimes people don't want to acknowledge that they actually had a crappy intent, right? Like how people will throw shade and be like, I'm just joking. There's this one guy on Threads who tried to make a joke and was like, oh, you look like you're 55 to 65, baby. No, I don't. Like I'm not even like, no, I don't. I'm not even worried about that. And he was like, I was just joking. I was like, well, tell me how that's a joke. Tell me so I can laugh. I want a hee hee ha ha. And he kept like going all over the place. I was like, because it wasn't a joke. And so whenever people say that wasn't my intent, like, well, what was your intent? And I still get to have feelings on what happened. And so many times people don't want others to emote. We hate emoting. And what that means is that it's like, well, I have to give Jen bad news, but I'm afraid she'll be upset. Did you not hear what you said? You have to give someone bad news and you're afraid they're going to be upset at said bad news? Of course they will. They deserve it. And we don't allow people to emote. And so because whenever people are going to emote, we try and do everything possible for that not to happen. And so in that type of situation, it literally is that like, well, what was your intent? And I still get to be upset. Like both can be true. That maybe your intent was to make you laugh, it was feeling kind of hard right now. So the moment was to make people laugh by showing everyone a really ugly junior high picture of you. Well, it's just to make everyone laugh. Well, the intent to break the ice or whatever was to get everyone laughing at me. That intent doesn't get to override the impact. It doesn't. And so many times people don't want to acknowledge that they hurt somebody. So because they don't want to acknowledge they hurt someone, they'll talk all about their intent. It intent doesn't matter if it hurts someone. And it sucks to be like, okay, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings. Like it does. But when people sit with intent, they are not worried about the other person and the impact. And they're just protecting themselves, is all that they're doing. Is my intent is the only thing that matters. Is it? If I run over your feet with my car and I'm saying, well, my intent wasn't to hit you, you got two broken feet, I don't think you're gonna really care about it. And so I know that's a end of the spectrum kind of example, but at some point we have to be okay with someone saying, hey, that impacted me in a way, and say, I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to keep it moving because I now recognize it. Now, if you keep doing it over and over again, you really don't care about impact or intent. And so this also gives someone an opportunity to have change behavior.
It's interesting. So in human design, going to bring it back to human design. But in human design, you and I have sort of an opposite. It is an opposite thing. So you are something called an emotional, and I'm something called an open or non-emotional. So basically, I mean, I know not everyone subscribes to this. Everyone feels
Mhm.
emotion. Everyone has feelings. But in human design, the idea is that there are nine kinds of energy, and some people create each of those energies consistently, and some of us we pick it up and we amplify it from other people. So someone like you create your own emotional energy. I pick it up and I amplify it from others, and I feel it in my body. So again, it's not that I never feel emotion. It's not that I don't have feelings that like come from my thoughts. I'm in charge of those, because it's based on what I believe. But I do like feel it in my body. And for the longest time, I didn't really realize this, like how much I was trying to control other people's reactions to me, because then I was like, I'm gonna have to feel your emotions with you, and I don't like that, and I don't want to do that.
Mm,
But that gives like the interesting thing is that when I pull back and I'm like, right, that emotional energy that they created actually has nothing to do with me. I
yeah.
have to, be responsible for this, which is one of the hardest things I've learned in my life. I still don't like it
Mm-hmm.
when people get mad at me. But when I, can hold on to that, I keep my side of the street clean. That gives them, the ability to emote and not repress that and not distort that energy, which is like one of the biggest reasons why no one can handle emotion. Like people like me will feel like they can't say what they want to say, and then the other people will feel like I can never emote. I have to like keep everything locked down. So people like my sister, she's like you, she creates emotional energy, and in our family she was always called very emotional, and I was too because I was picking up her emotions. I was like, ah.
Oh yeah.
But we were kind of like shoved down to, by the stoic male patriarchal approach
Yeah.
to our family. I love my dad and brother, but it's true. And so we kind of both compressed it, especially my sister, and it was like so unhealthy for her. And she's not
Yep.
even really that emotional of a person, right? It was just shoved
Mm-hmm.
down because we wouldn't let her emote. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, I've just kind of had to be like, all right, like it's my job to learn not to take this so personally. And anybody else, whether you are designed like myself or like Jen, I think that's like one of my biggest lessons in this lifetime, but I think it can serve everybody. And I think it kind of feeds into this whole thing of like, it's why people don't like to give people bad news. It's why people also don't like, I think not wanting to feel like a bad person is a big motivator for
Yes,
people.
yes, 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 yes.
So have you like what's your history with dealing with conflict? Like do you feel like you were always good at this like growing up? Like what's your background with your family with conflict?
Yeah, so I just want to touch on one thing you said
Oh,
about
go ahead.
kind of the making of emotion and the human design stuff you're talking about. God, it so is true about me. And one of the things I've had to really recognize and pay attention is how my emotion affects people. Because if I'm somewhere and I don't like something, it's very easy for me to control everyone with my emotion. So
Yeah.
I try and pay attention, like my facial, right, my face, my body language. I try and pay attention to it because I can control or I can control a room with my emotion. And so when there's a situation where I'm upset or something, I really try and pay attention to not having it affect other people because it I can bleed all over everyone. And kind of going to what your question was, is I haven't. My mom was super conflict avoidant. She had 5 kids by the time she was 25 and then adopted me at 41. And I think about how hard, I mean, I have a cat who is just so
Oh,
clingy
oh,
at all. Like Pickle I've been gone, so he is so clingy. But like I have a cat and I'm 45 and I could not imagine having 5 kids by the time you're 25 and you can't deal with conflict, right? You have to try and figure out how to get through life. And so as I've gotten older and doing this work, there's an empathy and grace I give her. My mom passed away in 2020, but like there's an empathy I give her of how hard that must have been. And you can't then teach your kids skills on it, right? You can't because you're just trying to stay above water. And so she was super conflict avoidant. Like she would have jumped out of a moving car before she had to deal with conflict. She hated it. I mean, it would be so obvious. I would be like, I'm starting to get mad about something. She'd be like, look at the flowers, look. And she would be like, everything. And then it would make me even more frustrated because all I wanted to do is have a voice and say how I'm feeling. And so it got to be as I got older, it's funny because the white side of my family just writes strongly worded letters. Like they will not fight face to face. You'll get an email. Like that's how they fight. The black side, my aunt would be like choking my uncle against the wall, and I'd have to be like, "Aunt Ida, take him down." So I had both of these kind of opposite methods, and so for me, as I did like this, the work I do on conflict inherently has changed me as a human in all ways. I look at reconciliation differently. I look at time differently. Like whenever there's like an argument or something with friends, I'm like, we'll talk. Where else when I was younger, I'd be like, we have to talk now. We'll talk. Like we'll connect it. And so that was like how I have changed in how I look at humans. Like I said, like those two moms who we're just saying shitty things. When I was younger, I probably would have been like, I don't accept your apology. Now I'm like, girl, I get it. Like y'all are trying to protect yourself. You got like I get it. And so I have changed in that, or like friendships, reconciliation. The one thing I will not do though is I will not reconcile with a friend if we haven't talked about the thing. We have to talk about the thing. So many relationships come back together and the thing is not talked about. And it's right below the surface like a shark. I've told people, like, I want to talk to you, but we have to talk about this. And because our relationship cannot move on. That thing is going to be there. And once we have a conflict, it's going to come right back up. And so for me, it has been when you do this work, you keep peeling back layers and layers. Because I bet, like you talking about human design in relation to yourself, you keep connecting things, right, from your family, and just you keep pulling back layers that one time talking about it would not do it justice. That's why I try and tell people when you say, oh, I've done this session on this thing, you might have done one. You need to keep doing similar sessions to keep pulling back layers and connecting yourself to the material in different ways. Every single time I talk about this stuff, something new rises to the surface where I'm like, oh, I never even thought about that. Like there was I can't remember. I was talking to some high schoolers, and one of them asked a really good question. I was like, man, I never thought about this in connection to this, this, and this. And so that's what I tell people is that when you're learning about yourself and you've read one book, keep reading other books on that same area because you'll be pulling back layers on yourself and connecting things and thinking about things in such a different and sometimes beautiful way.
I'd love to ask about, I was going to ask you a story of like one time you felt really proud of yourself for resolving conflict, but we've heard a few of those. You're free to share
Mhm.
that too if you want. I'd love to hear if you had like a client or someone that you've worked with in like a corporate setting, any setting, like maybe even an athlete that you worked with
Mhm.
who was really struggling with dealing with a conflict in their life or maybe even avoiding it. And then you guys worked together or there was something that you shared and you saw that play out and you're like, I am so proud of you for doing that.
Oh my gosh. So this kind of goes back, and I'll pull it up with my book.
Mhm.
And, I wrote this book, I Said No, How to Have a Backbone and Boundaries Without Being a Jerk. And the reason I wrote it was because I feel like there is stuff that like a lot of it is very theoretical and I want it to be practical. It has stories, there's reflection questions. Like I want it to come from a different viewpoint and a short read. Like I'm not about to write the next great American novel that's like 400 pages. Like we don't have the time or capacity or space to read these long books. I don't have that much to say for 400 pages, but I was like, I can do a short, quick one. And so a friend of mine, he literally wrote and he says, Chapter one honestly made me question a falling out I had with my aunt who no longer speaks to me and had me reaching out to her.
Wow.
And that right there was super beautiful. And literally said that after chapter one, it had me texting my aunt, and then the very last page you mentioned hoping it led to reconciliation in a relationship. And he's like, it had me contemplating this 12 pages in. And so I say that because like that I've had it where literally this guy in one of my sessions, he um he was like, I'm now starting to realize the falling out I had with my best friend was actually over this, this, and this, and I'm gonna contact him. So the thing that I see from people is that it makes people rethink some of the conflicts that they've had. And I will say one story I'll say is that my best friend in 2019 we had a falling out, and one thing that I've come to be very aware of is place. Place can change the dynamics of a conflict. No conflict has ever been settled in front of 50 people, right? Like that just doesn't happen. Place is very important for conflict to be moved through. And I'm a former volleyball coach, and we are going to see each other at the convention. And I was like, I just not here with everything going on. And so we weren't talking. Then my mom passed away, and she sent me a card, and it said, and we hadn't talked in almost a year, and it said, "Had I known where the funeral was, I would have sent flowers." And that's the type of person she is, and that made me say, "This is a person that I need to reconcile with." Because even when we're not talking to each other, the fact that you're willing to send a card and flowers tells me that that's someone I need in my life. And so I think sometimes in our anger, we don't know what we want. We don't know how to have the conversation. I think sometimes you just have the conversation and know there's steps to this. It's not overnight, but what is it? Is this a person you want in your life? And how do you start building that relationship back? And the relationship forever, our relationship is forever changed from that moment, good, bad, otherwise. And so it's like, is this a person you want in your life? And how do you start building back the relationship that is just like a broken vase, right? You're going to put it together. It's going to be very different, but it's still going to have beauty. And so for me, that's how I look at a lot of this stuff is, are these people you want in your life? What is the topics you need to talk about? And how do you really move forward with it?
Hmm. Yeah. The biggest question, like at the end of the day, do you care about this person? Do you feel they care about
Yeah.
you? And do you want them as a part of your life? I had a falling out with a friend a few years ago. Just not, we just weren't right for each other, I think, as
Yeah.
friends. Was not taken well by her. And I knew from past experiences that she would, no matter how I told her, she wasn't going to react well. And usually and I'm just kind of, thinking about what you're saying now.
Yeah.
But usually I would like confront someone and talk to them about it because they're important to me and I don't want
Yeah.
that. You're right. It's just like it will live as a shark underneath the surface. There will be resentment. It will be uncomfortable and like more uncomfortable than if you just spoke about it in my experience. But with her, I was like, I don't want this bitch in my life at all. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want her,
Sometimes that's how
And so,
it
yeah.
is.
And so eventually, when I was like, if she asks me, I'll tell her. And I did. And she blew up, there was because I literally just said, I just don't think we're right as friends. And she took it however she took it. But yeah, if it were someone else like my sister, where I'm like, okay, you're always going to be my sister. You're going to be here.
Yeah.
Like, you're the mother of my nieces. You're part of my family. You're one of my best friends. Like, it's just, at the end of the day, I
Hmm.
want you in my life. Yeah, it's a great indicator. Because I think I also, when I was younger, used to, because unsurprisingly, I'm a Libra. Because I tried so hard to like make sure everything was so copacetic, I would try to resolve certain problems with people who it was just like it was not gonna resolve. They didn't want to, or they wanted to be right, or it would come down to them just being like, so you're gonna say that I'm right, right? And I don't think that really serves anyone. And
Hmm.
I'm sure making myself sound like a martyr here. I'm sure I've been that person for other people.
Yeah.
Guarantee you I have been, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. But I think it's such a great point. Well, I kind of want to wrap this up. You've given us such good knowledge to work with, and I'm really excited to read your book now. I feel like I could pull so much good stuff from that. I know that I could actually, and I feel like the people listening could as well. Especially because this whole podcast is about doing what you love to do. It's about following what makes you happy, following your joy, and you are going to have to deal with some people who don't get that or for whatever reason try to block that, right? But, you know, when we're talking about people going on their own path, especially if it's a path that looks different from other people's, or there are
Hmm.
some other people they're gonna upset along the way. I think that's just like a part of life. You're gonna make people
Hmm.
angry if you go do what you like, no matter what it is.
Hmm.
What is like one piece of advice that you'd give people on doing that, especially if they have been blocking themselves from following their dreams or doing something they want, and the main reason is like someone might get mad at me or like a relationship may break.
I think that when you're going on the path to doing what you love or want, it's ugly. It's so hard. So, random thing, but I was at Amazon Web Service, so AWS, like they have all these products, and they have this conference called Reinvent, and it's like this 5 day long conference, and they have like all these different activations. They have one where they actually flew in 15 people from Paris to make you a perfume or a fragrance. Yeah, they brought in all the Paris people to literally make you your own fragrance. They had all these different things. But and this is Amazon. Let me premise. They also had a place where you can get a tattoo or a piercing. Amazon conference. So I go and I get this tattoo of a cactus. I
Love
mean,
it.
also let me premise I have a full sleeve, like it's not, but like I got this tattoo of a cactus. And the reason I got this tattoo is because first I'm from Arizona, but second because when you're doing your own thing, you're going to be like a cactus where you're not going to have access to stuff. You're going to be right in the middle of a barren desert trying to figure your own stuff out. You're going to be prickly. You're going to eventually grow your flowers, but like all this stuff, right? A cactus holds the water and the things it needs, and you're going to have the stuff that you're going to need. And when you go on this journey, of course, people aren't going to want you to do the thing you want to do. Sometimes it's because they're sad that they didn't get to do the thing they wanted to. So if they didn't, they're going to make sure that you don't get to. And sometimes it's their own thing of, I think in this, like right now, and there is no, um, before you'd work a job for 50 years, get your watch, get your pension, go off into the sunset. There is no, I can't even think of the word where like, you're going to be in your job. That does not exist anymore. Where you're like, I know in 10 years, I will be in this job. That does not exist. And so because that doesn't exist, it's like, everyone used to say entrepreneurship is the scary thing. No, to me, working a job for 5 years and then getting an email that I'm fired, that to me is the worst thing. There's no stability. That's the word. And so, because there's really no stability in anything, why not try it and know that people aren't going to like it? And you can't live if other people are going to not like it. You can't. And if that's what you're doing, man, I feel bad for you, the life you're going to live, because you're going to miss out on so many beautiful things that you'll do because someone else is saying something. Like I can't even fathom that. And so I think the thing I always tell people is you just got to get better friends. Like it sounds easy, and it is. You just have to get better friends. My friends, I mean, the things that they will help me do are amazing and phenomenal. And the rooms that they've put me into and the rooms that they speak about, that's the friends you need to do. That's the circle. So if you have people that keep telling you not to do it, you don't listen to them, you just replace them, because this is so hard. It's hard. I own a tech company. It has been the most humbling thing I've ever had. And if I didn't have the people around me I do, I wouldn't have lasted. And so you have to get better people. If your partner is the one who's telling you don't do it, get yourself a better partner or be single with a cat named Pickle. No, don't take Pickle. Take another name. But like you can't this world is too short. Life is too short for you to do what other people want you to do. Get a different partner, get some different friends, but you go do the thing that you're meant to do.
That makes me think of someone I gave a reading to once in human design. And she's what we call a manifester energy type. Anyone can manifest like law of attraction. This is a different thing. The guy just gave it
Hmm.
that name for his own reasons. But basically, these people, like, they are, once they have this internal inspiration to go do something, it's like they're a bullet train to go make it happen.
Hmm.
Like, they are, and I'm pretty sure, I get the feeling from you, you're a manifesting generator, which is basically a
Hmm.
manifester with like, well, not really. It's a worker, like, someone who has a lot of energy to do and create and build. And they do
Hmm.
it a lot snappier than someone like
Yeah.
me. I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
I grab on and then I'm like, here I am for the long haul. I'm like a slow, how do I explain this? I'm like the slow Peter Pan ride at
Yeah.
Disneyland, and then you're like the roller coaster. You're like Splash Mountain,
A
like really
hundred percent.
fast. Yeah. Yep.
100 there. Who was I? Like I will do stuff very quickly, and like I tell people, like you just either you're in or you're out, and it's fine if you're not. Like when I travel, I make decisions very quickly about like if something's not working, I would change Airbnb quick. Like I am 100% that, and luckily the people I know who travel with me, they're just along for the ride because things are gonna be moving quick. Put your seatbelt on, put your
Yeah.
harness on.
That's life with a manifesting generator. I'm surrounded by them. So I know I
Hmm.
love them because I incarnated around a lot of them. But
Yeah.
yeah, you guys are snappy and do not like to wait. And fair enough. You got a lot
No,
of
no, no,
energy
no.
going on in your body. But anyway, so she is kind of like you, except she doesn't have as long lasting of energy to do stuff.
Yeah.
But basically, manifestors, they're the initiators. They're the people who are like,
Yep.
right, I have this thing. I'm going to go do that. And she is purely that. And then they kind of like rest, and everybody else, like you, me, we kind of pick it up and we're
Hmm.
like, great, what you started, we're running with that and doing our own thing and like making something with that.
Hmm.
Um, not to say we can't start our own stuff, but basically for her, like the problem with manifestors is that they have like so much power in their aura because their aura basically needs to move stuff out of the way, including people, to get their shit done.
Yes.
And that really triggers people. And for
Yes.
manifestors, and this is the case for you as well, Jen, speaking things into existence is so powerful. Like, I want this, I'm doing this. For you, it's I'm feeling this. This is how I'm
Hmm.
feeling. It's very powerful and helps you create what you want to create. So for manifestors, being able to share what they want to do and feel supported in that is really important for a lot of them because they're badasses, but they're humans too, right? Like they don't really need other people to help them most of the time, but they're like, I'd like to know that the people around me think this is like chill, right? And they're not going to block me.
Yes.
And so for her, she was telling me that she'll have these ideas and her friends will shoot her down basically, and she's like, so I don't want to tell anyone, which sucks because for manifestors, telling people what they're going to do is like one of the best ways to
Yes.
manifest what they want. And so they like are supposed to quote unquote inform, but she was like, I don't want to because my friends are like, shut up girl, like you're being annoying, or like they just like she could feel that it was like
Oh,
triggering them. And
oh
this
no.
is something you hear
Mm-mm.
from a lot of manifestors, and it
Mm-mm.
just sucks because they're here to they need to be able to go make stuff happen. It affects the world. It helps everybody. And so I was like, all right, I want to tell you something. Your friends suck. I was like,
Suck.
yeah, they suck. And,
Suck.
I think about this all the time too. You know, with in my life, I've taken a very different path. My father passed away recently, but my,
I'm sorry.
thank you. And I'm sorry about your mother too. I know it was a while ago, but it's always hard.
Hmm.
But one of his tenants at a building he owned texted me, and she was like, "Yeah, your dad, he loved you so much, and he always said Ariana always goes her own way." And I was like, "Yeah," much to his chagrin. It was like he was proud of it, but it was also the biggest pain in his ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was an immigrant. He built a very stable life. He was like, "Why are you like telling people their star charts
Right?
for a living? What is wrong with you?" But he supported me in that, but it was always something that's very different from the rest of my family. And yet they have supported me. I have my mom who supports me. I have my friends who think that what I do is like the coolest thing ever. And without that, it would be way harder than it is because I already have plenty of
Yes.
doubt as a business owner and somebody who does something
Yes.
different. And I'm sure that you've experienced that too. Like, we don't need that from the outside. So, like, get better friends is really the best thing. And she said that.
Oh, I mean, my chief of staff literally, I'll be like, I have this idea. She'll be like, okay. Like, she's never quite, like, I started a tech company. She didn't sign up for that. And she was like, okay, girl. And I remember I saw my junior college coach. I had called her about something, and it has been 20 years, right? I mean, I've seen her occasionally, but it's been 20 years. And she literally said, everything you touch turns to gold. And I'm like, you knew the 18, 19-year-old crazy ass, but to say that, I was like, oh my gosh. And you have to have people around you that think that because it's like you said, it's already hard enough. You already have so much doubt that the people around you, if they're not lifting you up and believing in you, find new friends. It's easier to go and start building new relationships that help you than to keep in old relationships and trying to shift them. It's not going to work.
Yeah. One last thing before we go, I just want to say it was funny you said that because you have something in your charts called Gate 14, power skills, and I call it the Gate of the Golden Touch. So that's hilarious. But
Are you going to send me like a copy of my chart? Because I want to see it.
yeah, I can take a few notes for you and send it to you if you want. If you have
Yes,
any
I
like
would love
questions in
it.
particular, sure.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's really nice. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Well, I know you have to run. Thank you so much for joining us. This was an awesome conversation. I was so excited to
Yes.
have it and so glad that we did.
I appreciate you. This has been phenomenal. I can't wait to see my chart. Y'all, it's after Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa is about to happen. You're stressed out. Buy my book so you can say no. Go on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, my website, JenFryTalks. Get the book, read it, and just start with small pieces of micro advocacy. Just small. You're not going to jump to saying no to not making Christmas dinner. That's far fetched. But start saying small no's. Maybe like I'm only going to make two sides, or I'm only going to make the turkey, or whatever it is. Start with micro advocacy so that you can build up.
Perfect. Great. All right. And I will have links down below to everything so you can find Jen super
Yay!
easily. But that is it from both of us today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you rock, and I'll talk to you next time.